In this episode, we interview Jill Miller, Curriculum Director at YWCA Metro Chicago BreedLove Entrepreneurship Center. All right, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. Today we have Jill Miller, who is a Curriculum Director at YWCA Metro Chicago BreedLove Entrepreneurship Center. Got it on the first try. Let's go, Jill. How's it going?
Hey, Joseph, how are you? I'm great.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So per usual, we always start by just the mission statement overview, in this case of YWCA's BreedLove Entrepreneurship Center. I'd love to start there.
Yeah, so first, the YWCA's mission is to empower women and end racism. And under that umbrella is economic empowerment. And the BreedLove Entrepreneurship Center sits there. And that is a initiative dedicated to leveling up Black businesses in the communities they serve, with a goal to close the wealth gap. Our vision is a more equitable tomorrow, and we promise that to everyone who walks through our doors or gets on our Zoom calls. And our mission is to empower Black businesses, close the wealth gap, and transform communities.
All right, boom. And we're going to get into how. But before we do that, I'd love to hear your background. Why is this something that you are passionate about and wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, so my background is like any good entrepreneur at midlife. It's a winding road. I spent about 15 years in packaging and processing, supporting consumer packaged goods companies, as well as supporting food companies. And I saw a consistent theme of a lot of the inequities that we really didn't see. And a couple of years ago, I decided to completely shift my focus from corporate business development to working within communities and trying to close some of the gaps that exist out there. Our cohorts are typically heavy on consumer packaged goods, relationship to the food industry in various ways, and the packaging and processing industry, or you could call it food and consumer products, has very few female and or Black, brown entrepreneurs, businesses. And so we saw an opportunity to try and help increase the access to that market and make some connections. It's the best thing I've ever done in my career.
Yeah. Why do you think that's the case? Don't you think there's that many Black women, brown women in that specific industry?
Well, why there are so few?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I think we have to go back to institutional racism for that.
Yeah.
Just as a quick stat, and maybe not necessarily in our cohorts, but if you look at what I would call consumable packaging industry that supports a lot of the consumer packaged goods companies and food companies out there, it's about a $380 billion a year market. Less than 4% of that is female owned or led, and statistically less than 1% is Black owned. When a lot of these companies were being formed and rising, women, people of color couldn't even own a company in many cases. So they've been shut out for so many generations. And these are typically companies with high barriers to entry, like capital equipment. And then you just couple in the finance side of it or the capital side of it. 70% of women who seek funding are denied. Only 3% of the $23 billion in business loans went to Black-led businesses in 2019. And in 2021, it's estimated that only 0.34% of the money awarded in venture capital went to Black women.
And
women in general only received about 2%.
Okay, and I'm assuming of the submissions, it's more than 2% of submissions are from Black women. Is there like a disparity?
I don't know the stat on that, but there is. I know without a doubt, women are trying to chase and get capital.
Yep.
At a rate of more than 0.34% for Black women and
correct
2.2 for women in general. Uh, it's appalling, really, when you think about it. Uh, and so at BreedLove, we try to bridge that and try to make some opportunities available, uh, connect people, mentor, provide a curriculum that sets them up for success. Uh, but yeah, there is a huge need, and so many entrepreneurs are solopreneurs, and you get into the uh, one person at the Y calls it uh, foot strapping, right? Most people call it bootstrapping. But I think when you get into areas where people have been so marginalized, they don't even have the boots to begin with, right? This is, if you've been shut out for so long, it's hard to just bring people, right? It's hard to just get right back into the fold. So there's a lot of good work to be done.
Yeah.
And I think we're making good progress. We've seen some good impact occur. And I think that's only the beginning.
Yeah. And you started touching on a little bit about BreedLove and what are some of the aspects and pillars of how you're changing the environment and the access to capital and empowering women in small business and medium business and large and entrepreneurship in general. So what are some of the main pillars maybe that were in place when you started, or maybe if you want to take us through a little bit of the history? I'd love to talk about the main pillars of what has been successful and stood the test of time.
Yeah, so BreedLove has just finished off last fall. We finished off the third cohort. I came in right ahead of the second cohort. And at that time, we began creating a curriculum that was very focused on the women themselves. A lot of business accelerators are focused toward venture capital or paired with a venture capital fund. At this point, right, we're under the umbrella of a social enterprise.
Yep.
So we're working really closely on meeting the needs of the participants, which I think is unique. We've seen a lot of feedback over the last few cohorts from the women who are participating. One theme that we see is we're hitting things head on that are really scary, because there's a lot of scary stuff. As an entrepreneur myself, there's a lot of sections of business operations that are scary. So we try to hit those on. We try to always look at things through the lens of what trauma may exist already, because we do know Black women face a significant amount of trauma, whether it's generational or other areas. So we try to be very open-minded and empathetic to what's going on. And we focus any of our presenters or our mentors are brought into the fold there to make sure they're looking at it through the lens of what the women need, and maybe not just what is a typical presenter. And then we also see themes of community, which is fantastic. A lot of women feel less isolated when they leave the program. Being an entrepreneur, we can all be isolated at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're facing bigger odds than anyone else, it's even tougher. So we focus in 4 areas. The curriculum ties to that. First is building generational wealth. How do we look at exit strategy planning? How do we look at purpose of capital, as coined by our partners at William Blair? William Blair does a great job partnering with us to provide personal wealth management advice. Why are we looking for capital? What do we want to do with it? What's our story and our specific purpose as a participant, and trying to flush that out. And it might be related to values. It might be related to financial. It might be related to philanthropic. And then we also try to focus in that generational wealth area on some really interesting areas that are very good at providing generational wealth, which would be how do we take a restaurant, for example, and convert it to a franchise model? So we've seen that happen. We also talk throughout the curriculum about employee ownership and the benefits of employee ownership, which gives not just the owner operator all the wealth benefits, but generally has a positive impact throughout the employee base. And then getting to a point of growing toward acquisition. So the generational wealth idea empowers women and gives them the vision that they can move forward with change and be the next generation, be the next billionaire, right?
Right.
So generational wealth is at the heart of it. We do focus on finance, which isn't as fun as talking about purpose of capital and really digging into the why of why you get out of bed every morning. And we look at revenue modeling and scenario planning and trying to with uh, connect what's going on in the business directly to new modeling that will prepare them for taking on investment if they need it. All businesses will need some infusion of capital at some point to be sustainable. And this is one way to overcome lack of access to capital. Our women in our program are brilliant. Not everybody has a finance background. We all have our specialties, and finance is really something that we all can work on and learn more. And it tends to rule the capital world as well. So that's area number 2. And then market, we try to work on the customer journey, driving easy improvements in the business by connecting with the customers, researching and understanding and contextualizing how we connect with the customer. We look at human-centered design, marketing, sales, networking. How do we help people create partnerships that can grow the business, and whether it's cross promotion or fits in that area. And then branding and storytelling is another area we focus on. We've partnered with Tether Creative Agency out in Seattle. They are run by Stanley Hainsworth, who is the former Nike creative director. He was Starbucks creative director, Lego creative director, does a lot of work now with large brands like Tatcha and Gatorade.
Yeah.
He's brilliant, and his team dedicates a lot of time to the cohorts with the ethos that we are the stories we tell. Oh, we are the stories we tell.
Yeah.
And he helps us to work through fleshing out the story. So many of the stories we hear in BreedLove are just these incredible stories that need to get out there. How do we personify the brand?
Yeah.
You know, I think there are, we had one participant last cohort who at the core of it, she ran a retail operation, but at the core of it, her goal was to build jobs in her community and close the wealth gap and the retail gap within her community. And you don't always see that when you see a sign out front of a door. So how do we develop that so that people are connecting with the brand? Another woman has this beautiful story about how the lack of products for melanated skin have created self-esteem issues within the community for so many years, really difficult issues that can lead to mental health challenges. And she's getting her story out now. So Tether works with us directly throughout the cohort, throughout the curriculum. And then at the end, one participant is awarded a full branding engagement. So
Wow.
a full out team that works on product and packaging and all these great things. And it's just beautiful to see this come to life. And branding is not inexpensive. So we're really to have this partner in Tether.
How many people are usually a part of each cohort?
So we start anywhere from 12 to 18. We're very proud of the fact that we have over a 70% graduation rate. The industry average is about 20 to 30%.
Jeez.
We try to work very closely. Yeah, overall, I think in business accelerators, it's pretty low. It reminds me of my early classes in college that we called the weed outs. But we're very intentional about scaffolding
Mhm.
and trying to make sure that the women are able to take what they learn, apply it to their business,
Yeah.
and it's not just an added 10 or 20 hours a week. And I also think we do a good job creating community and bringing value directly to the business and quickly, while also looking at the strategic long view.
And is it usually entrepreneurs that are local, or is it a virtual environment?
Really good question. So the last two we've done as virtual with a combination of some in-person sessions and workshops. We're going to continue to keep it virtual for now. And people are certainly outside of the Chicagoland area welcome to apply. We've got most of our core is Chicago and Northwest Indiana. We've had a number of amazing women out of Merrillville and Gary. Uh, in fact, one of them, for anyone who is driving through Gary, there's Jay's Breakfast Club, which is Jocelyn. And she, during the cohort, was preparing to uh, break ground on her newest restaurant. So there's
Awesome.
going to be a grand opening coming up. We had Cute as a Cupcake out of Merrillville, who's expanding rapidly. And I think her tagline is a life without cupcakes is a life without love, uh, which I love so much. Uh, we've had Terry Evans, who runs Dockside Delivery. It's a food delivery and beverage delivery that goes directly to the slips in the harbors.
Ah,
Just a really amazing group of people. We had one tech recently, Minority Business Circle, Amira McCoy, who's done a lot of business coaching, and she decided to scale that to really set people up for success when they're starting their own businesses.
mhm.
She's done really well, and all of those women have benefited, I think, from the content, and then also the content, the community, and then the ability to connect into some capital or some networking opportunities that have helped to grow their business. So they're and just an amazing group of women. And I know I'm forgetting a bunch.
Oh yeah, no, no. That is so amazing. So, what's usually the criteria for people that want to apply?
That's a good question. So we look for women of color,
Hmm?
uh, generally at least 2 years in business. Uh, we were at a threshold of 250,000. We're going to lower that just a little bit.
Annual
250
revenue,
annual revenue.
right?
So about 100,000 up to a million is what I think our next cohort will be. And then generally being able to have the time commitment. We don't restrict on type of business because we think that there is so much support needed, and there's benefit
Yeah.
to having a diverse set of perspectives from a business owner perspective. We are heavy in food, restaurant, consumer products, but we've had everything from a transportation company to a tech to beauty care, restaurant, just a really amazing array of businesses that are all like these women come to life in the form of a business, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Wow. Wow. So you've had three cohorts so far come through BreedLove. What is kind of the future hold for this aspect of YWCA?
Yeah, so BreedLove has been growing, and we're certainly always looking for additional funders.
Yes.
If anyone needs a call to action, the YWCA does amazing work, and expanding the program is really important, right? Someday we would love it to be the premier business accelerator for Black women in the United States. And getting there is one step at a time. It's a little bit like a startup
Mm-hmm.
inside a social enterprise. And the support from the Y team and leadership has been incredible. But I think there's lots of room for expansion. Uh, and we talk through what building an accelerator itself, uh, the costs associated with that are high. And our goal is to continue to grow that network, continue to even uh, continue to mentor graduates as they go through their career and create this cycle where we have mentors and fellows and grow the program in that way. And ideally someday, and I'm just dreaming here at the moment, but ideally someday it would be funded so that the women at the end do have some funding to move forward. It's obviously difficult. I'm not sure what that looks like for the future, but ideally, if you can give someone a chance, and we all know it takes a little bit of cash to do that, I would love that the team at BreedLove could hand out checks at the end.
Yeah.
And I think there are partners out there that we're looking for that can help us get there without a doubt.
Wow. I wrote down here, BreedLove. It's more than just a title. What is the history of the word BreedLove?
Yeah, so the inspiration for the BreedLove Entrepreneurship Center is Sarah BreedLove, also known as Madam C.J. Walker. She was one of the first African-American millionaires in the U.S. She was born to sharecroppers and former slave parents in 1867, and she transformed herself after she was born from BreedLove into Madam C.J. Walker. She built a hair care empire that employed several thousand sales agents.
Jeez.
And did a lot of training, upward training of 20,000 women, which helped them pioneer a path to economic independence. And her spirit continues on every day in BreedLove. And I always point out that she was, I'll call her the mother of corporate social responsibility. She was very generous with her wealth and shared it, but she always made a point to share it to be used in an operational fashion, which allowed nonprofits to really get things off the ground and not be trapped into restricted programming funds. So she gets a big check mark for a lot of the values I try to carry every day in my life and aspire to. I'm nowhere near that woman, but someday I'd like to be in terms of her generosity and ability to really change the landscape.
Wow. Oh, so exciting. We've covered the history, we've covered what you've done so far and what the plan is for the future. People that are listening, how could they get engaged and what type of engagement are you looking for at BreedLove?
Yeah, so I'd say there are a few different areas. One is certainly we're always looking for entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So they can go to the YWCA Chicago.org website. There is an economic empowerment and BreedLove page there where there's an application. And I should mention if an entrepreneur is interested in engaging with BreedLove, there is also support for entrepreneurs who aren't as far along in their journey.
Yep.
And there's a team that works and coaches tirelessly to move businesses forward. So I would certainly encourage anyone to apply and engage with some of the economic empowerment work. I would also say specifically to BreedLove, we're always looking for people who are willing to give their time to mentor, whether they are a corporate finance person or an entrepreneur themselves. When it comes to success of participants within accelerators, there's some good research out there that shows the mentorship is one of the most critical parts because it opens up new avenues.
Yep.
It opens up different perspectives and often a path to funding.
Yeah.
So, and of course, money, right?
Yes. Capital. Donations, fundraising. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested, they can certainly reach out. I think we are always looking for good partners who want to support the mission. The work and the impact is huge when you think about if you can build a sustainable business within a community that really needs the jobs and good jobs and great leaders, which we try to make sure we turn out, or at least help them on their journey. So
for mentors, you usually look for women and men, or is it just women because it's a kind of a female program?
No, we look for men and women. Mm-hmm. We're inclusive, very inclusive, and change takes everyone. And people with subject matter expertise in, everything from finance to branding to sales to coaching. We often talk a lot about the psychology of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone has something different to offer. So I'll say we don't discriminate on mentors. And we try to do a mentor matching program that removes bias so that as the participants and mentors can work together, we use a platform called Compatibility, which is also a Chicagoland startup. It removes the bias and tries to match based on different criteria. And that alone is great. And I think there's no, the commitment, I think, around being a mentor is to stay in touch and support. And sometimes it's just a hug.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Like you said, it is a hustle. It is a grind. Absolutely.
For sure.
Amazing.
I applaud every single one of these women. They're my heroes.
Wow. So is there anything that we missed or anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up? I feel like time has flown by here.
Yeah, it has, for sure. I think the biggest thing I would say is that we need to be aware of why businesses of underrepresented entrepreneurs, whether it's Black women or people of color in general, why they don't exist in the scale that our businesses exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me pause there.
Yeah.
Let's edit that out.
Yeah.
We need to ask ourselves why those businesses don't exist in the numbers that white businesses exist.
Right.
And when we pause there, I do believe that we start to think differently about how we support someone who is everything that it takes to be a successful business owner, but due to whether it's institutional or systemic racism, may not have the opportunity to execute on their dream.
Awesome. Wow. Well, Jill, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And the work you're doing is amazing in supporting Black women and Black entrepreneurs, in this case, in the Chicago area. So we're honored to share your story. And people that are listening and want to get engaged, please reach out. We'll make sure to tag your social media and your links and everything that you shared. So it's easy to do so. Jill, thanks again so much for your time. Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you know of a great organization or individual leaving a positive impact, we'd love to tell their story. Check us out and contact us at gtzp.org. Don't forget, for more stories like this, you could also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Instagram followers, our link trees in the bio. And for podcast listeners, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks for listening and see you again soon.